After EXPedition, I didn't think there was going to be another group that would try to follow in their footsteps, but oh man, I was so wrong. Recently, a Western K-pop group named KAACHI blew up on Twitter, and the response was exactly what you'd expect, which was mostly outrage from fans telling them to disband. And to be fair, I had the same initial reaction, but I was curious and decided to investigate more into their group. Welcome to OPeach, and today I'm going to talk about the up-and-coming group KAACHI and give you my opinions and objective critique on the group, as well as Western K-pop groups in general. Before I begin, just a disclaimer. Do not send hate to the group, do not send them death threats, and in the rare occasion that KAACHI themselves ever see this video, I highly implore you to watch the end before forming your own opinion. So let's start off with the big question of who is KAACHI? KAACHI is a 4-piece K-pop group and also the first K-pop girl group to be based out of London. It is comprised of leader Nicole, who is Venezuelan, rapper Danny, Coco, who is Korean, and Chunso, who is Spanish. Also, interestingly enough, this lineup has changed several times already. First, we had member KG, who was then replaced by member Miso, and finally replaced by Coco, all before their quote-unquote debut. KAACHI is described as a fusion between Western and K-pop music, and all the members are avid K-pop fans and are able to at least speak basic Korean. Now, while it hasn't been confirmed that this is some sort of experiment like EXPedition, there is definitely a Korean production team behind them. There are Korean music producers making their music, a team or individual creating Korean subtitles for all of their videos, and in their mukbang video, there's a Korean lady asking them questions who I assume to be their manager because she's referenced in another video, and we also see her credited in their production team. So after watching all of their videos and looking at the limited information we have about them online, the biggest question just running through my head is what is the point of this group? I think my biggest problem, and also a problem that most international K-pop fans have regarding groups like these, is that they don't meet the industry standards. If you treat them as a regular K-pop group that debuted from, let's say, a smaller company, they can't even compare to the competition. Just take a look at any K-pop group that's debuted in the past year, and you can definitely see the disparity. Standards in K-pop are just so astronomically high because of the rigorous training that idols have to go through. And you can just compare KAACHI to any idol who's trained for 6 years or even 1 year, and they look like small potatoes. Dance-wise, they do have some skill, considering that KAACHI was formed from a larger K-pop cover dance group, but they certainly do not have the same kind of stage presence, charisma, and just technical skill that majority of K-pop groups have. Another thing that stands out to me is their rapping, or lack of skills thereof, because if you listen to their debut track, and listen to the rap verse, it sounds not so good, to put it lightly. Danny, who is in charge of rapping of the group, doesn't seem to have that much skill or confidence when it comes to rapping, nor do any of the vocalists particularly stand out to me. So they don't seem musically as skilled as the rest of the industry. But that's if we take them as a regular K-pop group debuting from a smaller company. If you think about it, they're not even a particularly good pop group. Now, your opinion on their music can be subjective, but objectively, their production is quite lackluster and doesn't really highlight or emphasize any of their skill set. I think KAACHI are in even more of a precarious situation than EXPedition because they're not even based in Korea, which further lessens their credibility as a K-pop. That's talking about KAACHI as a group specifically, but let's shift the lens to talk about these kinds of westernized K-pop groups in general. The biggest flaw about them is that, as a concept, they're doomed to fail. When their entire shtick is that they're trying to create a link between the Western music industry and the K-pop music industry, that's already setting the group for failure. Any kind of artificial growth into a market doesn't succeed in the context of music. When you try to force your artists into another music industry, you're never really going to get the same level of success that you were looking for. And this isn't even just talking about Western artists trying to enter into the K-pop industry, it also works the other way around. Korean entertainment companies have been trying to enter the Western music industry since the first and second generation of K-pop. SM Entertainment tried to do it with BoA, JYP tried to do it with Wonder Girls. Both companies failed. In the status quo with the rise of BTS and the phenomenon of their natural success into the Western music market, a lot of entertainment companies have been trying to replicate that same kind of success. Once again, SM Entertainment is trying to do it with NCT, JYP is trying to do it with Stray Kids and GOT7 to an extent, and Starship is trying to do it with Monsta X. That isn't to say that these groups aren't successful in the West, but they aren't as prevalent or have reached the same kind of success or recognition that BTS have. And that's fundamentally the biggest issue. Individuals or production teams creating these kinds of groups cannot assume that these groups are going to be successful or won't be met with some kind of backlash. And they really need to understand the kind of challenge that they're facing. And that brings me into my second point. These groups have to expect backlash. Now, I'm not going to use this video to try to argue about my opinions about whether or not Westerners should be even allowed into K-pop, because speaking as a person who isn't Korean myself, I don't really think I have the right to really gatekeep what should and should not be considered K-pop. But regardless about what your opinion of Westerners in K-pop is, you have to accept the undeniable fact that K-pop fans have been accustomed to one image, which is East Asian idols. Creating that sudden change and paradigm shift is really going to take time. And whether you like it or not, international fans are always going to hold these kinds of groups to a higher standard. And I'd even argue that groups like these are going to have to work harder than non-Western idols in order to be even taken seriously. Just between EXP Edition and KAACHI, we really don't see that. The absolute bare bones truth is that mediocre performance is going to elicit a mediocre response. If the dance, music, and rap that these groups put out was better, I guarantee you that there wouldn't be as much backlash surrounding these groups. It's just so much easier to pick on these groups because they're not at the standard that we've been accustomed to. My final point is that these teams creating these kinds of groups need to try harder and understand what makes fans want to connect with K-pop. Before even creating these groups, they need to think about what these groups have to bring to the table. Every popular K-pop group in the industry is known for something or has a shtick. Even if the nuances between different groups is very slight, it still exists. I'm going to be using the example of SF9 because they're the only group that I watched their debut reality competition show of, and I feel like I have a better understanding of who they are as a group. In their debut program, Dance or Band, the entire premise of the show was that FNC Entertainment wanted to create their first boy dance group. And SF9 really rose up to that title and exceeded all expectations by showing interesting and innovative choreography. Even if you don't know who SF9 are, you've probably seen this water wheel dance move choreography from their song KO. And keep in mind, this choreography was created pre-debut, and this was the level of skill that SF9 were showing even before they debuted officially. we need something like this. We need something besides another Western group trying to make it big in Korea as a social experiment, because fans aren't interested in that. And to be honest, they're kind of sick of seeing it at this point. Another thing that needs to be considered in order to increase fan engagement is personality and music concepts. It's been proven time and time again that interesting personalities ensures longevity in K-pop groups. And while KAACHI has released several pre-debut videos on their channel to highlight their members, it just does such a poor job at really showing what kinds of people they are. This is primarily because the videos are just so incredibly short, and also, as I mentioned earlier, they changed their member lineup twice already. So we basically know nothing about Coco. And even though these pre-debut videos featured KG and Miso, I'd also argue we don't get a good sense of what kinds of people they actually are. And here's the thing. The production value doesn't have to be amazing, because I assume that KAACHI or any other group like them are on a fairly limited budget. In dancer bands, we get the most character development just by watching the members interact with one another, as well as their confessionals. Just releasing longer vlogs for each member would have done a much better job. I also feel like the girls are masking their personalities with the guise of pretending to act like K-pop idols. They're very bubbly, they're very cheery and happy, and sometimes it just seems like they're projecting the image of a K-pop idol rather than just being themselves. All of these things already put them at a huge disadvantage. But let's talk about the second method of garnering fan engagement, which is music concepts. Music concepts are really engaging. Just think about EXO's superpower concept as well as their obsession comeback, and just how many theories and stories have come out of that alone, or refer to any of the work that BTS has put out over the last couple years. Once again, these concepts don't even need to be super complex. Even if their music just followed a similar theme or had recurring visual motifs, it would put them in a much better position than they are right now. If we reference SF9 once again for their title track and comeback with Roar, the entire comeback had a sort of automotive motorcycle concept, and you can see that reflected in the sound of the song, their clothing choices, and even visuals in the music video. This doesn't even need to be solely applied to their music, but it can also be applied to their group's concept as a whole. Once again, we can reference EXO's superpower concept, but the one that stands out to me the most is Red Velvet's duality concept, and how they will always come back with either a red or a velvet music visual concept. It's really not that hard. We just need to see them try harder. You cannot do the bare minimum and put in the most minimal amounts of thought into what you're putting out and expect K-pop fans to be satisfied. Like, something that can easily be fixed is if they just put more effort into the teaser photos. There's definitely some kind of production team behind them that's editing their videos to look pretty nice, in my opinion, but when it comes to the teaser images, it looks like they just have a lack of visual direction or some kind of idea of what they want KAACHI to be. Even putting their names somewhere in the photo would have done a better job marketing them, because even if you look at their Instagram page, they don't even mention the names of the members that much, let alone, we aren't even introduced to Coco at all. Let's just step away from all of this and talk about the idols themselves, because these production teams need to understand the impact that this is going to have on the idols' lives. So Vice made a documentary on EXPedition, and in the documentary, the members talked about how they were tormented with so much hate to the point of even death threats, and how they're basically locked into these positions and these jobs. They don't really have anything else to fall back on. If these production teams aren't putting in enough time and effort, They're screwing their idols over. KAACHI genuinely seem like good people from just watching their videos, and I would really hate to see them become just another failed EXP edition. All of this just brings up the discussion of the role of foreigners in the industry, but I think that conversation has much more nuance to it, and I don't think I'm going to try unpacking that in just this video. At the end of the day, we don't really know that much about KAACHI, so I'm gonna hold myself back from making too many assumptions about the group until we know more. As fans, we just need to understand that KAACHI are still human beings, and there's only so much hate a human being can take. I can understand why their teasers, their presence as a group would incite a lot of anger, but treat them as human beings. Be kind, be respectful, and instead of getting angry, engage in healthy discourse so we can further figure out how we can progress the industry further and what changes really need to be made. A lot of K-pop fans are the first people to advocate for mental health, but they're the same people that will turn around and absolutely bully, completely demean and crush the spirits of idols and just people like KAACHI. So that got a little more serious at the end, but I went into all of this thinking that it was just very cut and dry. You know, clearly we should not have foreigners in the industry, but doing more research and thinking more about this made me realize there's just so much more complexity to this issue, and there isn't really an answer that we can reliably use when dealing with all of this. So those are my opinions, and I really wanted to keep this as objective as possible, and hopefully in the future, more production teams can use this kind of critique to produce better groups that maybe will have better media reception. I would really love to hear your opinions and thoughts on all of this. Please try to keep the discussion and discourse as civil as possible. Treat each other nicely. Let's all be kind. And wow, thank you for making it to the end of this video. I normally don't really do commentary videos like this, discussing the industry as a whole. If you would like to check out some of the other content we have on this channel that's more fun than this, I guess. If you're interested, just check it out, and maybe you'll consider sticking around for the future because we have a lot more to come, and I would love to have you here. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one, and have a good day, stay safe, be kind. Bye bye!